Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about faith. Now, faith can have various forms. It can be faith in God, for example, and there are those who are very pious and devout, and who almost welcome the severe testing of their faith. So, if they can endure these tribulations with their faith intact or unshaken, then they perceive themselves as having passed the test. But there can be all sorts of types of faith. You can have faith in, for example, that judges will be impartial and independent and will deliver verdicts based on the facts. You can have faith that the US Department of Justice will impartially administer and enforce the rule of law and due legal process. You can have faith that elections will be honest and fair. Faith can come in all sorts of whether we call it faith or belief or sincere belief or in some cases, I suppose, even habit, but faith nonetheless. And we can get it down to the simplest level. When I put on the light switch, I have faith that the light will come on, and so on. So there are various types and sorts of faith, but faith in the unseen, I can see if the light comes on or not. But faith in the unseen, belief of something that's based on goodness or perceptions of goodness and of right and wrong and justice as in within the universe. These are quite different because you can't see it necessarily, and there are many variable and interactive factors that can contribute, unlike, again, the light switch, which is very simple and immediate. It does or doesn't come on, for example. So I want to talk about faith, and this goes back to something that from time to time pops in my head, and really it shouldn't, but for some reason it was a seminal or among the seminal lessons of childhood. I've touched on this previously, but it bears telling again, within this context of faith. This is in primary school, and it was a fairly small town, and so most of the kids would end up at a certain sort of road intersection. And we'd go to this intersection, and there'd be I think 5 roads came off it or something like that, and they went to different parts of the town, and so we tended at that point of that intersection to drift off in different groups and directions and so on. There was a kid. He was like had been quite a badly premature child, and his folks weren't big solid people, so he was a very frail child, but they were very pious, very devout, and they taught him to believe in the goodness of other humans and to not doubt it. And because he was small and because he had that unusual sort of view, the other kid bullied him quite horribly. Thinking back about it, maybe not that unusual for kids because they tend to be rather unpleasant at times, but I never liked it, and I sort of held back, and I thought, no, I don't like you beating up that kid, and should I have jumped in earlier, over I don't know, maybe it was months, I don't know, maybe a year, I don't know if it's even that long, but going back to my memory, I'm sort of like 8, 9, 10, something like that, and I didn't like the way that they did it, but no matter how many times this kid got bullied, when one of the bullies would call out his name for the purposes of delaying him, so he could be bullied and donged on the head and whatever, he would always turn around, this kid, and I remember it sort of like it was like yesterday. He would turn around with a very sincere, very trusting smile, and yes, and he believed implicitly in, or his parents had taught him to, but he believed implicitly in the goodness of other humans, and that their intentions were good and would be good, and that what they did yesterday should not be in any way prejudice his trust and faith in those people or the situation and circumstances. So they would call him, these kids, and he would turn around with that trusting sort of almost puppy dog type smile, and he wasn't mentally retarded or anything like that. And then they'd bully him again and hit him and so on, and he would cry and he'd go. But the next day, the same thing would unfold. His faith was unshakable, and his parents again were very devout and very pious. I'm not sure what religion they were, but they were very committed to it, very belief, and they had the same sort of trusting, smiling belief. Now, it got to a point where I sort of kind of had enough, and I said to the kids, "Hey, leave them alone. That's enough. I don't think we should do this, or they should do it." And I was sort of a bystander, so I suppose indirectly involved in this, but gentle suggestions. Oh, do we really need to do it? Come on, let's go. Let's leave him alone. It doesn't mean no. And we can all look back to times possibly like that where we think, well, we should have put on our Superman outfit, jumped into the telephone booth, put on our Superman outfit, come out and kicked huge ass, jumped tall buildings and done all that sort of stuff. It's not quite that way when you're a kid, as we all know and remember. But so this particular time, I said, no, again. So, well, well, if you don't like it, we'll beat you up, sort of thing. And I didn't appreciate that. So I ended up getting in a punch up with the kids. They left him alone, I suppose, which was some minor achievement. I'm not sure I got a fat lip and whatever out of it, but I did it the next time, and then in the end, they kind of lost interest in this kid because bullying that other kid because they knew that I'd make a fuss about it. Now they bullied him at other times when I wasn't around, so I'm not sure anything was ever achieved by. I look back at it and think with some small amount of guilt almost that I should have acted earlier rather than let it go for as long as it did. I thought they'd tire of it naturally, but they didn't. They seemed to get off on. Now, the issue here was when the kid cried, he wasn't crying, the kid was getting bullied. He wasn't crying because he was getting bullied. I'm sure he didn't like it, but it wasn't that. It was because his faith was being tested, that he was being tested to from a kid's perspective, to the fullest extent, that he was turning around, trusting, and from his pious sort of perspective, in a loving and kind and full of faith and trust and so on like that, that he believed that if he believed that other people would be good, somehow they would be good and they would be good to him. And when they weren't, which they clearly weren't in this case, then his faith was tested. And it's the struggle of a 9-year-old kid, whatever it was, a 9-year-old kid trying to come to grips with maintaining his faith under such duress. But he was determined to maintain it. And so every day he fronted with that trusting smile, no matter how many times these kids bullied him. And his folks knew my folks and that sort of thing. It wasn't that big a town. And nothing was ever said. They maintained, his parents and him, and I think there was another child in the family. But anyway, they maintained their faith and belief in the goodness of other humans, and it can't have been easy. I don't think I could have done it. And throughout my life, sort of faith in those sorts of things. Well, not that exactly, but faith generally, could be faith in the courts will be independent and the judges will rely on facts. Could be those. And I think we've all had our faith in the Western civilization tested to the nth degree. And we want to believe that again, that elections are fair and honest, and judges are impartial and apply the law, and justice departments apply the rule of law equally, and that the law is upheld equally. We want to have faith in those things, but we're actually going through a crisis of faith at the moment. That in reality, these things have broken down, and the law and the political system side has broken down, and as has many of the relationships between people, whether it be race and gender and so on. It's disintegrating fast. And so the faith in the world that we once believed in and that we believe is what's not perfect is probably as good as we're ever going to get in terms of human evolution, give or take. The most perfect form of human evolution is absolute merit, absolutely equal application of the rule of law and due legal process, and absolutely honest, ballots saying that the government is accountable to the people. So that's about as good as it gets. But again, we can tinker at the edges in improving it, or maybe taxation a little bit higher so the people that can't help themselves are looked after, or the elderly and infirm and that sort of thing. There are things that can be done, but the objective of making everyone's life as good as it can be, given the resources and material we have, that faith, and I had absolutely unshakable faith in that at one point, and that faith's been tested, and I don't have it now, and I'm sort of annoyed with myself. Where has that faith gone? I should still believe, and I should still work towards a better society, where again, merit, the rule of law, due legal process, etc., applies. But we have, globalist forces working to completely the opposite. So the question is, should we maintain our faith in the face of this disintegration of Western society, and will our belief alone be enough, insofar as we don't accept the globalist gig? Would our belief and faith alone be enough to turn it around, or is it something else? So I sort of put that question out there, but it brought me back, as I say, to that thing when I was 9 years old, and that kid's faith being desperately tested, and him trying so hard to maintain it, and suffering the consequences of that bullying as a result of it. I think over the longer term, like if I think back to those kids now, I don't know where they are, but or one of them I do, but they're leading sort of quite miserable lives. The bullying and the hatred of others hasn't really served them well. And I imagine if that kid's still alive, his health wasn't that good. If that kid's still alive, then he would have a clearer conscience and possibly a happier outlook, particularly if he kept his faith and belief in the goodness of others. But I put that out there. I've waffled a little bit there, but you've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.